I can't hear anyone again. Can you guys hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Good day, sir. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Excellent. So, good afternoon, everyone. Um, I'm not expecting to hear your voices, but it's really nice being here to share a part of my experience with young people, aspiring tax lawyers, tax consultants, transfer pricing experts, international tax experts. And I see you guys within the next 3, 4, 5 years, you'll be expert and you'll be sitting down where I'm sitting, talking to aspiring lawyers, tax experts, and the likes. I want to believe that the tax club is not just for law students. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, good. So, meaning I'm talking to future lawyers, future chartered accountants, future tax experts. And it's interesting to note that I wear all the three caps. I'm a lawyer, I'm a chartered accountant, and also a tax expert. So, certified by the Nigerian Law School, which most of us will definitely be in a few years. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, and I have an advanced diploma in international tax, um, which has been issued by the Chartered Institute of Taxation UK. Within the next 25-30 minutes, I'm just going to walk you through opportunities ahead of you. The future is very, very bright, and you must take that future very seriously because in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you need to be able to look back and say to yourself that you made the right decisions, you did the right thing, and you spoke to the right people in the course of your career. And in the next 20 minutes, I will be shedding more light on some of the things you think you know, some of the things you know, and adding more insight to things you already know. So we're looking at opportunities in taxation, and in looking at it, um, I'm going to be taking you through what tax practice is all about. What are the opportunities available to you as students, to practitioners, challenges encountered, how one can be a tax practitioner, why is tax practice important, and how, in the future, how you can attract clients. And there's a part of my outline that is not here is what can you do as students? What can you do as students to be on the right path towards being tax experts in the near future? The first thing is to, well, maybe the first thing is to even understand what taxation is. And for me, I think that is the starting point. And you must all understand that tax is a compulsory levied by a governmental authority, and it is backed by law. You can see uh, the underlined words: compulsory, levy, charged by a governmental authority, and backed by law. And that is the first three tests of understanding whether an item of levy is a tax. If it does not tick those three boxes, just cancel it, is not tax. And what we usually do is that we see a lot of times where local government authorities, governmental agencies and authorities come with different kind of levies to our clients. And for us to test it as whether it is being taxed, you must cross all those three things that I talked about, which is the fact that it is levied by government, it is compulsory, and it is backed by law. Then there are some tax base that you tax. And you must understand that tax is taxed on income, profits, gains, consumption, and instruments. So when you look at profits, you look at your company's income tax act, which tax profit of companies. You look at your personal income tax act, which tax the profit of individual doing business. You look at income. When you hear income in tax, it means employment income. You look at gains. Gains are taxed on chargeable assets. When you dispose of chargeable assets, like your motor vehicle, your building, your machineries, and you make a capital gain on those transactions, then those transactions are liable to capital gains. The next is consumption. Consumption in the light of sales tax, value added tax, and the regulatory framework is the Value Added Tax Act. Then you look at instruments, and the instruments, you look at the Stamp Duties Act that charge levies on instruments executed between contracting parties. You can see that tax is that's long and short of taxation. And the next thing after this is to look at what tax practice is really about. You can look at tax practice from the point of view of a lawyer. You can look at tax practice from the point of view of an accountant. And you can also look at tax practice on the point of view of a tax administrator. And also from the bench, you can look at it from the point of view of an adjudicator, a judge, or a tax appeal tribunal commissioner. Any which way, any which you are doing, you are in the business of taxation. And how do you position yourself to have opportunities, in all these roads that I've mentioned? It is important to note that as a tax practitioner, your clients could either be government or private. I think I've mentioned that. When your client is government, that means that you are working in a government parastatal. For example, you work with in an internal revenue service of the state, or you work in a federal inland revenue service, which is the administrative body for collecting tax at the federal level. Like we are saying, we said the opportunities can be government, private, and international. And that was what I didn't mention in the last slide. You can be an international tax practitioner either by advising multinationals in relation to cross-border taxation. And when you are an international tax practitioner, you are looking at understanding tax treaties, you are looking at understanding in multilateral arrangements, documents in relation to multilateral agreements, mutual administrative assistance on tax matters. You are looking at country by country reporting transactions. You are looking at transfer pricing. Those are the areas you are able to advise on in the area of international tax. When you are looking at, you can also be an international arbitrator. We've seen instances where, taxing rights between countries are brought before an international tax arbitrator to look at the various provisions of the tax treaties, the local laws of those jurisdictions, and come with a decision on which of the entity has a taxing right. So that is a point of view. You can also look at it from a point of view of you and I, day-to-day tax practitioner. Either your tax practice is in the area of law, meaning that you do mostly tax advisory, advising your client in relation to the provisions of the law. It could be tax litigation. What you do is to look at the law, advise your client on their rights in relation to taxation, and defend them either at the tax appeal tribunal or at the federal high court or at any other court as may be applicable. And when you are in government, like I said earlier, you are in the business of collecting taxes on behalf of your principal, which is the government of the day. So let's quickly look at under government, so that I don't just speak on top of my head. Let me look at the slide so that we can all move together. So we said in government, when you are in government practicing tax, what you will be doing is drafting tax policies, drafting regulations, tax laws for governments, agencies like the FRS, SIRS, Ministry of Finance, and other relevant government parastatals. In the drafting of regulation, this is not only lawyers that are involved in those drafts. You will see chartered accountants, you see chartered tax practitioners, too, in the room with the lawyers, because lawyers know all the techniques of legal drafting and regulation drafting. There's some of the content of these regulations and law are provided by the accountants who understand more about the implementation. And when you marry the implementation with the legal framework, then you come up with a robust regulation that cross all the T's and dots all the I's. Then also, from the area of government, you could be representing the tax authority in court. We've seen situations whereby a private lawyer works for the government in relation to defending the powers of the government on tax collection in court. And we've seen instances where those lawyers are employed in the departments of the government agencies, and they assist those agencies in defending their powers in court. You see lawyers work in the Ministry of Justice, and you see a lot of accountants work in at the FRS, that's the Federal Inland Revenue Service, and State Internal Revenue Service, or Board of Internal Revenue. And the last is, as can be seen on my slide, is presiding over tax matters. So these are the areas in which you can get opportunities to work in government. The next is opportunities in the private sector. And when you're in the private sector, you're either working as a lawyer in a law firm, you're working as a chartered accountant in an accounting firm, or you're working as a chartered tax practitioner, either in a law firm, an accounting firm. And what do? Simply you advise local clients on local laws, you advise international clients on cross-border tax transactions, tax structuring. And for you to be able to do this, you have good knowledge of the local laws and how those local laws interplay with international laws. For those of you that have done international law, or I think it's even a legal method, that when we were told in 100 level that the local law and international law are two sides of a coin, meaning that there is no how you look at your local laws without looking at international law. In the real sense of it, international law, unless it is localized by the National Assembly of a country, those local laws, those international laws may not be applicable in that country. So for an international law to be applicable in Nigeria, Nigeria must have subscribed to it and it must have been domesticated. So anyway, that's that with local international laws and local laws. Then also when you're in private, you advise, foreign clients on the implication of their cross-border transactions. You see a lot of foreign clients come to Nigeria to do business. They want to know the interplay of the tax treaty. How are they able to minimize tax? They may decide that, Nigeria does not have a tax treaty with my country. Let me go and incorporate an entity, maybe like an holding company or an SPV, in a country that has a DTT with Nigeria, so that I can take advantage of tax treaty opportunities so as to minimize my effective global tax rates. So these are the things you do as a private tax practitioner. Another is representation of clients at the tax tribunal. For the accountants, it will interest you to know that the tax appeal tribunal, not only lawyers appear before them, accountants also appear before the tax appeal tribunal. So meaning that if you are interested in tax dispute resolution, even when you are an accountant, you still have those opportunities to do them at the tax appeal tribunal, just that you will not be able to appear before Superior Court of Records in Nigeria. But notwithstanding that, you can be called upon as an expert witness in relation to tax disputes, meaning that notwithstanding the fact that you can, sit before the judge, stand before the judge, and address the court on the law, you can be in the witness box to convince the judge, in the area of tax that suits the purpose of your client, in your capacity as an expert witness. And for us in Faculty of Law, the kind of weight the court places on the opinion of an expert. Okay, we move next. The next is supporting your client in tax audits. This can be done by both lawyers and accountants. So when it comes to figures, I know lawyers don't really like figures, but a few lawyers that like figure may be able to, take on some of these tasks on behalf of their client. Okay, that's that with. The next is transfer pricing. I'm sure some of us may be hearing the word transfer pricing for the first time. So transfer pricing is an area of taxation that deals with how multinationals and related party price transaction between one another, such that those transactions are priced at arm's length, meaning that what transfer pricing does is to ensure that there are no manipulation of pricing so as to shift profits from an area where there is a high tax rate to an area where there is a low tax rate. And for you to understand transfer pricing, you must understand the OECD guidelines on transfer pricing that lists the relevant transfer pricing methods to be adopted by entities in the pricing of their related party transaction. These are wide area of law that if we start to discuss them, none of us will leave here today. And I don't want to bore you at this point. We are looking at opportunities. So let's stick to opportunities. You can also be a tax accountant. There's a difference between a tax practitioner and a tax accountant. And what does a tax accountant do? A tax accountant look at the interplay between current tax, deferred tax, and how that interplay is represented in the financial statements of companies. And the last is being a tax teacher or a tax researcher, like some of your lecturers that teach you law of taxation. That is another opportunity that waits for you as an expert or a tax practitioner. So I think that's that with private. So who can become a tax practitioner? You look at a lawyer. Some of us here are law students, lawyers in equity, hoping one day to be lawyers that have been called to Nigerian bars. We look at accountants in the room. Please, for the accountant in the room and the non-accountants that are interested in okay, let me start with the accountant. For the accountant, know that your journey of being accounting or an accountant does not end in the university. You must add with it a professional certification, either issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria or the Association of Certified Chartered Accountants UK, that's ACCA, or Certified Public Accountants by Canada or the US, and those are the major accounting body. Or you can decide to go to the Institute of Chartered Accountants, England and Wales. These are the professional accounting bodies you can join. And you cannot join them by saying that you're an accounting graduate. You need to write certain examinations. And good thing for you as accountant is that you get certain exemptions when you study accounting from a reputational institution like the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. So I think that's that with that. And I said any person of interest in taxation. Someone like me, well, let's say I'm a lawyer. But if I'm not a lawyer, I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a person of interest in taxation. And because of that, I went the hard way of writing those professional exams to become a chartered accountant. So any which one you want, you can be both a lawyer and a chartered accountant at the same time. It makes you an excellent tax practitioner and it gives you an edge over everybody. When you combine the arts of both a lawyer, that means you have legal reasoning, you can read the tax law and understand, you understand interpretation of tax because the laws are not written in English. They are written in English, but at the same time they are not written in English. In the sense that in understanding these provisions of the law, you must have basic or good or excellent understanding of how statutes are interpreted. You see a lot of Nigerians on social media, very ignorant about how the court work. They read the provisions of the law and they interpret it in English. So as a lawyer and a chartered accountant, you have the skill of understanding the law and interpreting it perfectly. And you also have understanding of how you can translate those laws into numerical simulation. Like there's something I'm able to do for my client. as lawyer and chartered accountant is that when I advise them, I key in the figures that if you decide to go to this model, this is the numerical simulation and this is going to be the likely tax effect. Because there are sometimes you advise your clients on the law, but by the time they put figures to it, your advice may not be correct. It may be correct on the point of law, but by the time figures are put keyed into it, it may no longer be correct from the point of an accounting perspective. So that is why you see most of the time, it's not compulsory to be a lawyer and chartered accountant if you don't like figures. Because most of the time what we see is that we see lawyers and chartered accountants coming together to work on transactions. You see transaction, you see like Olaniwun Ajayi, you see KPMG as financial advisor or tax advisors, and you see Kakawa Discount House, you see as also financial advisors. So these are the people that can become a tax practitioner. And I'm sure all of you in the room will fall into one of these boxes, that I've highlighted on my screen. The next point is to understand that why is tax practice important? Why do we even need tax practitioner? I'm going to look at it from the point of view of government first. So for those of you that want to go into government requires tax practitioner who will assist in formulating policies and drafting laws that are investor friendly. You can see that what you need to do to attract investment is to have friendly tax legislation. And if you look at what this new government, one of the first few things that this government did was to inaugurate a tax reforms committee. And what will the tax reform committee do is to look at the laws, amend them in the light of the current realities, remove all the bottlenecks, and make those laws investment friendly. It means that when you have investment in your country, a country like Nigeria should have a lot of foreign investment because we have all it takes to make business thrive. But where there are no enabling legislation that will make business thrive, nobody will come into Nigeria to invest. A good example is the Petroleum Industry Bill Act that was passed, I think last year, or was it early this year or last year. In the last 15 years, the investment in the oil and gas sector have been minimal. Why? Because there have been uncertainty as a result of the Petroleum Industry Bill that was just flying around and was not being passed. So none of the investors were willing to bring in their funds into Nigeria so that they don't get stuck by provisions of new regulation. They waited until after the Petroleum Industry Bill became an act. So it's important for you to know that government needs good tax practitioners that understand the working of tax to ensure that policies that are investor friendly are being formulated in the country. The next thing is that government requires tax practitioners with good understanding of international law or international tax to ensure that its tax base is protected from erosion by multinational and tax havens. There was, I don't know if you guys have heard about BEPS action plan. There was a BEPS 2 that Nigeria did not decide to sign to. Why? Because they realized that the BEPS 2, the global minimum tax, will not favor Nigeria. Why did Nigeria know that this thing will not favor them? And they didn't sign to it because we have good tax practitioners that have good understanding of international law to be able to advise the government that this policy is not for us. It does not favor Africa. The next thing is that government requires excellent tax practitioners that will drive revenue agency. You see a number of times you see government bringing in private persons to run the tax agencies. Look at in the past three administrators of the FRS were from private sector. Babatunde Fowler, Muhammad Nami, and the new FRS chairman. They are all, the two of them are from the private sector. So meaning that when you are a private tax practitioner, government will call upon you call upon you to head the revenue agency. And the last one on this slide is that tax tribunals are important in the area of tax dispute resolutions, either by serving as tax appeal commissioners or acting as amicus in courts. Those are the tax experts. They are friends of the court. They are acting as amicus, either as tax experts or on their own. This is the case because taxation is a technical subject which requires deep understanding. Taxation is very, very technical. And because it's technical, you and I will be needed to crack those hard nuts that requires to be cracked so that there will be proper adjudication of justice when it relates to tax disputes. Now let's look at the importance of tax practice from a private point of view. The first one is advising clients with tax optimization. Anytime foreign investors are coming to invest in Nigeria, they reach out to all that tax practitioners that please advise me, what are the regulatory framework in your country? How will the tax of your country impact on my transactions? What is the interplay between the local tax in your industry and the double tax treaty that we have with my own country? What are the impact of this regulation and that on my business? And you need to be able to advise your clients on all this. And by the time you take a look at all these things I've mentioned, the goal of its client is to minimize or optimize tax, contrary to the goal of the government, which is tax maximization. But for a government that wants good investment in its country, there must be a balance between tax optimization from the point of view of a private person and tax maximization from the point of view of the government. The next is to support clients in responding to tax queries from tax authorities, driving thought leadership. Like what we are doing now is thought leadership. If I decide to write an opinion in the newspaper, they are thought leadership. Right? And from a private point of view, there are clients that need some of this thought leadership to make preliminary decisions. And when they need deeper understanding of those issues, they will definitely call on you. And the next thing is to advise clients in the area of tax dispute resolution, either at the tax appeal tribunal or at the superior court of record. And the last but not the least is tax education. You need to teach the future tax practitioner. And that is what we are doing here. That's what I'm doing here, giving you insights. You have your law lecturers in school who are going to be teaching you the theoretical rudiment of taxation. And when you decide to take taxation as part of your core, you will decide to do a research on taxation, do your master's and do your PhD in taxation. Like one of your lecturers, Mr. Jude Odikonigbo, is a tax expert, is a tax researcher, and is one of the best people in the industry. Now, this is for tax practitioners, but I think as law students, accounting students, you need to know that our profession is conservative, meaning that you cannot come on here to start advertising your products. So how do you now do it when you become tax practitioners and you want to advertise your products? Number one is driving thought leadership discussion on tax matters. You could do this by writing, by research, by presentation, by going on here to discuss tax issues, with presenters, with journalists, with reporters. By this, you are known, and when issues around that area, comes up within, the office of a client or their entity, they call on you to assist. When you attend tax conferences, both local and international, you meet other practitioners like yourself, and you are able to exchange ideas. And because no man is an island, my area could just be international tax. And when I have issues around compliance, I can reach out to, I met this man, I met Favor at the last cited conference, and I think she told me she's into compliance and transfer pricing. Let me reach out to her. Before you know it, you share fees. So these are areas ways in which you can, attract clients. You can also write about tax issues in international journals, right? You can also teach taxation, and you can also advise your existing clients. And most of the time, when you give good advice, it is those clients that will tell other clients that you need this help, see Martins. You need this help, see Anita. You need this help, see Favor. And that's how it runs. So how can today's students prepare for the future as tomorrow's tax experts? You've taken the first step, and the first step is to join a tax club. You have ideas, you get insights, and you start molding yourself towards being that professional that you want to be in the near future. And you may think that future is a lot of years to come. No, the future is now. I still remember vividly when I was in the university. And, it's always good not to waste your time. Any opportunity that you have to expand your knowledge, to expand your exposure, you must embrace it. And one of them is to join the tax club, rub minds with people of like minds, rub minds with professionals like us, and before you know it, you're already building your pathway towards being, the tax practitioner that you want to be. Chisaram was supposed to also be on this panel. I don't know if she had spoken, but I knew Chisaram a long time ago, and she has been on that trajectory from the university, and she's an international tax expert now. So you must start this from now, and tomorrow is today. So the next is to intern in tax firms. There might not be a lot of tax firms, but I know there are accounting firms that do tax, and there are also law firms that do have a tax practice. So you can, intern in these firms. By the time you intern in those firms, you have insights from the theoretical knowledge that you have from 4 walls of the university to some of the practical issues that you see in, in the society. Okay, I just saw a message that Chizaram is coming up next. Anyway, my regards to her when she come. Yeah, my regards to her. Okay, the next thing is to listen to economic news. I know economic news can be boring. You remember those days when our parents, when they are always listening to news, they want to understand what is the economy saying, what is telling them. It used to annoy us as children. What this man listening? I want to watch cartoon, I want to watch Super Tech, I want to watch Voltron. Those are the cartoons during our own time. I know a lot of things has changed now. You want to watch Scooby-Doo, but your parents are watching the news. Why are they watching the news? They are watching the news, they are listening to economic issues and see how those economic issues will affect their own living, will affect their lifestyle, will affect their disposable income. That is why they listen to news those times. And when you ask them, and at the time when you ask them for things on the day, you ask to bring something in school, you are telling them the day. They will tell you, well, do you think you can just ask me today? Why didn't you have time? Like, you think I plug money? Because human wants are unlimited, and the means to satisfy them are relatively limited. And how do you manage some of these strategic things? Is by being conscious of economy, by being conscious of the things around you. And how do you get conscious of them? Is to listen to economic news that talks about fiscal policy, that talks about monetary policy, and those two things that I've mentioned, fiscal and monetary, the interplay will definitely affect our style of living and the pattern in which we live our lives. Either we are comfortable, we are average, or we are uncomfortable or poor. So you must, as tax practitioner, as tax student of taxation that are open to be tax practitioners in the future, you must be able to understand the economy. Because when you are looking at the economy, You are looking at fiscal. And when you're talking about fiscal policy, they relate to tax laws. And when you're looking at monetary policies, they relate to how the government drives the economy with their policies. Thank you for listening to me. And I may be available now to have your questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obajimi, for this insightful session. We actually did learn a lot. If you don't mind, some people have some questions that they would like to ask, if that's okay.
Very well, very well. I'm here. I'm still with you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your name?
I'm Mba Christopher by name, sir.
Oh, Umba.
Can I go on with the question?
Please go on.
All right, talking about CITN. So I want to know about the process and everything about it.
Of joining CITN.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you a law student or an accounting student?
Accounting student, sir.
Okay, so if you're an accounting student, I would advise you to just leave CITN for now. Do ICANN.
No, I'm currently doing ICANN, sir.
If you're currently doing ICANN, stay with that for now. Because, yeah, you stay with that for now. Finish your ICANN. Because ICANN is, how would I put it, is the real thing. Because you cannot understand taxation without understanding accounting and financial reporting. Because accounting, tax sits on accounting. It is a product of the accountant that is used by the taxpayer. And that is why, if you look at the way ICANN designed its syllabus, you will do tax at the critical moments of the modules. So, with ICANN understanding of taxation, you are good to go. I'm not a member of CITN. I might be joining soon, just for networking purpose, not because I see that it's very, very important to me, right? I'm not saying CITN is not important, but as an accountant, it's important, from maybe regulatory point of view. Oh, I'm a tax practitioner. I need to belong to the Association of Tax Practitioners. But when you are looking at it from a core tax practice point of view, you need to marry accounting and tax together. And that is why ICANN is important at this point. You may not decide after writing ICANN that you want to go through the exam of CI10. No, no problem. But you should understand that when you're a child accountant already, you have automatic license without writing exam to be a member of CI10 without writing any exam. As a lawyer, as a child accountant, you can be a member of CITN without writing exam. But I advise lawyers that are not planning to write ICANN to write the CITN exams, because it gives you a proper understanding of how those tax laws that how they work in practical terms. So for a lawyer that is not interested in figures, please, and you are interested in taxation, enroll for CITN. It is good for you. But as a child accountant or an accounting student that is already writing ICANN, it's really not necessary for you. You can decide to, as a matter of choice, decide to write the exam, or you just pay for exemption and become a member after you qualify. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
A round of applause, please.
Good afternoon. Um,
Good morning. Yeah, good afternoon. So who's speaking?
Victor, sir. I need to be Victor.
Okay, Victor, how you doing?
I'm fine, sir. So I'm one of the
Good.
executives for this club.
Oh, very well.
So, sir, you talked about transfer pricing. So I have a
Yeah.
question. Sir, considering the evolving landscape on global taxation, what role does staying updated on international transfer pricing guidelines play in helping tax practitioners seize new opportunities and mitigate risks for their clients?
Okay. You were breaking, but if I may understand you well, you're asking for how transfer pricing helps with the evolving landscape of international taxation.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that a breakdown of your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first approach to your question is to understand why those principles around transfer pricing came, how they came about, and why are the international community, the G20, the world powers decided that it was important for every country to cover their base. You see a lot of instances where multinationals are present everywhere and are present nowhere. Now, let me say this. You must understand that in taxation, in traditional taxation, for you to be taxable in a particular jurisdiction, there's something we call connecting factor. And when you're talking about connecting factor, it means that something must connect you to a jurisdiction for that jurisdiction to have power to tax you. And what are the issues around connecting factors? It could be citizenship. For example, in the US, their connecting factor to taxation is citizenship, meaning that when you are a US citizen, you are liable to pay tax on your global income. Another connecting factor is residency. For example, for residency, the UK, Nigeria, and some other countries, their connecting factor to taxation is relevant, meaning that you must be resident in that particular jurisdiction for you to be taxed. But there are some entities that are not resident anywhere. And most of the time when they are resident in tax haven and they do business all over the world. They get trillions of USD and they don't pay any tax. I will give you a concept in international taxation. They call it the double Irish with a Dutch sandwich. The double Irish with a Dutch sandwich. This model, you know, uh, talks about having two Irish companies, one Netherlands company, and by the time the taxes are manipulated, that entity is paying tax nowhere. Now, that is one. Another two, one is base erosion. There are some companies, there are some countries that they call tax havens. They are tax havens because they either have minimal tax or no tax at all. Now, some companies will now set up an holding company in those jurisdictions or a financial holding company in those jurisdictions, or those jurisdictions could even be the international sales entity. Now, they could do different things. Number one, that entity could be a financial holdco. What does that mean? It means that the shareholders of that company will take all their funds to that jurisdiction and they will now give loans. They will be financing the operation of all their related party from that tax haven, meaning that all their related party will be paying interest. They will now charge an interest above market value. That is where transfer pricing comes in. So, for example, if the market value interest is 20%, they may decide to charge their related parties 40%. And what will that do? You should understand that interest is a deductible expense. So all those jurisdictions in those other jurisdictions, they will not deduct those finance costs and pay interest to this tax haven. By the time they pay interest, meaning that the whole amount they have paid to this tax haven will not be liable to tax. So what have they done technically? They've shifted profit from other jurisdictions that has tax rate by the use of interest payments. So tax transfer pricing will come in here to say no, arm's length transaction, the transaction between UBA and Dangote Group, they charge 18%. Why is your foreign related party charging 40%? And in that instance, transfer pricing will require that there be an adjustment. And what will that adjustment do? All those money that you've paid, they will now add it back as part of your profit and tax it again. That is one. Another aspect is to look at what we call contract manufacturing. You have a international sales company in a tax haven. You now go to a country like China to outsource your manufacturing. A lot of companies do that now. They outsource their manufacturing to China. You now do the outsourcing such that the profit that will be recorded in China will be little. For example, you are doing as much as 90%, while the profit that will be taxable in China will only be 5%. That means that you've been able to shift all the profits to the tax haven, so that the tax haven will make the sales and all the profits from all other jurisdictions that you now gather it in the tax haven and all the shareholders will share. And that is why in 2018, the G20 and the OECD came up with what we call the base erosion and profit shifting rules, action plans. Action plan 1, transition of digital economy. Action plan 2, hybrid mismatch. And they did a lot, I think about 15 action plans to address the erosion of profit from one jurisdiction to the other. So what the transfer pricing guideline does is to ensure that is to bring up 5 transfer pricing methods: cost plus method, transactional net price margin method, comparable control price method, and two other methods I can't remember now, to ensure to use it as a guide so that companies can have a TP policy, and in those TP policies they must adopt the most practicable TP method that aligns with their business, and they must document this in a TP documentation such that this now prevents issues around base erosion and profit shifting. Thank you.
Yes, yes,
Any other question?
yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, good afternoon. What's your name?
Yes, my name is Okuchukwu.
Ogbachuku. Okay, go on, please.
My question, sir, is on your personal experience in writing the Chartered Institute exam. I just wanted to know your biggest hindrance, your advice, if I ever made something like that.
Can you ask your question again? I didn't. You were breaking.
Yeah, I said my question is on your biggest hindrance while writing the exam and your advice to if I'm to ever meet something like that.
Okay, so are you an accounting student or a law student?
I'm a law student, sir.
Okay, so let me just share my own personal experience. It doesn't work for everybody that way. So I started writing ICANN. I started from ATS. ATS is accounting technician scheme. And I started writing ICANN when I was in 500 level. So I was in 400 level going to 500 level. So there was a long ASU strike, and I felt I was wasting away at home. And I enrolled for ICANN, and that was how I did ICANN. So I started from ATS, ATS 1, ATS 2, ATS 3. I don't know if that's still, I think that's what they still do now. ATS 1, ATS 2, ATS 3. Then when you finish ATS 3, you go to intermediate, P1, P2, P3. So by the time I was writing in intermediate, So I wrote my intermediate before I went to law school. By the time I came back from law school, the syllabus had changed. So instead of me to go to P1, I had to write another paper in intermediate. And by the time I was doing my NYC, I'd finished ICANN. So not everybody can combine, especially when you are on a first class track or a very strong 2-1 track and you don't want to get distracted. You may not want to, write ICANN as a law student. But if you know that you are very brilliant and you can, you can endure what it takes, because it means you need to read extra hours. Law alone is a mouthful. And accounting also is jealous, meaning that you have to dedicate everything to it. Even today, as a lawyer, see, what can you see here? This is a financial reporting textbook. I still, from time to time, look at my financial reporting, to understand issues around tax. So you cannot just say, I'm not an accountant, let me leave it. No, you still need to be reading, you know, your financial reporting. You need to understand it the way you are reading your case laws. There are new standards that come out every day. Like this morning, I saw that there is a new standard. There's a new standard on insurance, accounting for insurance. And this morning, I saw that another standard has been released for SMEs, accounting for SMEs. So all these are very, very key. So for a law student, or what I will advise is that if you know you are in an irreparable tutu, you can start. But if you know you are on a 2-1 or a first class, I will advise you to just wait. Except you are certain that you will do it and it will not affect you. And I must tell you that when you are writing ICANN, you need to read 247. You need to read on the go. You need to read on the go. You need to be on top. For those that are writing ICANN amongst you, will testify to what I'm saying. You go for classes, you don't miss classes, you keep reading until the exam. And I know that law too is very, 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 very tough. So as an accounting student, I would encourage you to start ICANN from university, because it will definitely help you in achieving the first class you want to achieve. But for a law student, I would not allow, because they are just apart. They are not, they are facing opposite direction. And I will not tell you that what you do in the ICANN class will help you with your law. No, 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 no. Except you are you are genius enough to be able to combine it. But that's just my golden advice.
Thank you very much, sir.
So I'm Charity, an accountant student.
Okay, great.
Christian. So my question goes like, as an accounting student about to start project research, do you advise for any of special or audit? So much.
So I didn't hear you. Can you say that again? As an accounting student,
As an accounting student about to
yeah,
start project research, do you
yeah.
advise area of specialty in taxation or audit?
Okay, so it really depends on your interest. It depends on your interest, but there are so many things to write in taxation. So many things, so many interesting topics in taxation that will interest your lecturers. For audit, where it could only be one way, either expression of an interest, expression of an opinion on whether a financial a statement expresses a true and fair view. For me, maybe because I'm biased towards taxation, I just believe that there are so many topics in taxation that will be of interest to your lecturers and even to you, than from the point of view of doing your project research in audit. I don't know if that's clear. but I would rather choose taxation because there are so many topics you can write on taxation. There may be limitation in the area of audit, writing on audit.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for.
Yeah, so much for taking the time. I already have one question. Like with like impactful and stuff like that, and we like love your time. I
You
understand
are
that.
breaking.
Sorry.
You are breaking.
Okay, sorry. I understand that internships are important, but like with what other courses can you other recommend? I know like I can internships are important, but like to continue furthering like your knowledge on like maybe tax and like keeping up with everything. Like what courses maybe do you recommend you take?
You mean in the university
Yes, sir.
or outside the four walls?
Yeah, just both, sir.
Okay, so for me, you can start looking at the Coursera as courses on international tax. So start, doing those courses. Those courses are free. You can start doing them at your, all those times I used to press Instagram, look at funny videos online. Check out those videos on, you know, understanding international tax on Coursera, and it will give you an insight into how international tax works. So you can do that, and there are a lot of online courses that you can take that are free, apart from Coursera, that you can have good understanding of tax law. But when you start practicing, yes, you can decide to write um, uh, the account tax exam of another jurisdiction. For example, you could do audit like I did. You could do CIOT, the Chartered Institute of Taxation UK. You can also do that of Nigeria. So it depends on the strategy you want to adopt for yourself. If you do not have plan of staying in Nigeria, if you have a country that that's where you want to end up, you can start reading their tax laws from now. Talk to people that can give you their tax laws, either it's Canada tax laws, US tax laws, UK tax laws, and those countries have very robust tax laws. So you can start reading those tax laws, and even if it's Nigerian tax laws, because when you know tax, you know tax. Tax is almost the same everywhere in the world. The only difference is that countries have different regulations, but the underlying foundation of tax itself is the same all over the world.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this insightful session and answering all of our questions. We really appreciate your time speaking to us on opportunities taxation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure to be here. And when Chizaram come online, my regards to her.
Definitely.
Uh, yeah, is Mr. Nduka Ikeyi still in your school?
Sorry?
Mr. Nduka Ikeyi, is he
Oh,
still
no,
lecturing in UNN?
no, sir.
Okay, he's also a tax person. It's all right.
But Dr. Jude is still a lecturer here.
Oh, he still lectures. Oh, that's
Yes,
interesting.
and
That's
he's
interesting.
our patron in Tax Club UNN.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. All right. It's really nice talking to you all.
Same here, sir.
Yeah. So we'll catch some other time.
Thank
Bye for now.
you. So before you log off, we just have something to say.
Okay. Are we still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so Tax Club UNL, what do we say to Mr. Obajimi?
It's indeed my pleasure to be speaking with you all. Thank you for the opportunity to call upon me to speak with you. And I'll sure always, come around when next you call me to speak with you. Do enjoy the rest of the program, and I wish you all the best in your various career. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so in summary, um, the important things Mr. Obajimi said to we tax enthusiasts, he said we should join the tax society and for law students offer tax law as an elective and intern in tax firms or law firms that do tax and keep your eyes open for opportunities to express or show what you have learned so far. Thank you very much. Round of applause for